Hey, good afternoon everyone. Are you all still awake? Can't see the back. I'll probably lower the tone a bit. We talked about Mandarin, learning Mandarin earlier on. The North East of Scotland, I'm glad to see, I think a fair number of you should understand Doric, the dialect of the North East. Okay, that's fine. As a reminder, the theme of World Quality Day is quality delivering competitive advantage. So how can you stand out from the competition? And in the North East, there's an expression, if somebody says, how are you? And say, oh, I'm nae bad. And actually nae bad can mean pretty good, really. We tend to understate things. But in terms of standing out from the competition and what everyone else is doing, then I'm suggesting nae bad is probably not really quite good enough. Very quickly, my background, I was a consultant with KPMG, as, you know, who wasn't, Ken? Mandos is a corporate member of the CQI. Personally, I was asked to write 4 of the modules for the body of quality knowledge about 4 or 5 years ago. So I wrote the modules on management systems, defining processes, corporate strategy, and something else, can't remember what. I was also a member of the Standards Development Group. I don't know how familiar you are, or even want to be, with ISO 9000 9001. ISO 9001 is the assessment standard for quality systems. ISO 9000 is sort of the companion document which explains the fundamentals, the concepts and terminology. All the standards go through a revision cycle, and ISO 9000 is up for revision. It was to be 2014, but it's now slipped to 2015. But the CQI put forward a position paper making recommendations for changes, which then goes to, basically goes through a very long ISO process. It goes from CQI to BSI, or to a committee, and then goes to BSI, and then goes to an ISO committee, and then you know, 2 or 3 years later something may possibly happen. But what we did, we've actually been fairly radical in what we've proposed, because the standards, with the best will in the world, they tend to reflect what was best practice, and by the time they've actually gone through all the committees and then come out, things have moved on. So even when you get the next version of 9000 or 9001, don't take it as being best practice, because things will have moved on. Just as an aside, I also wrote D the Business, which is management and IT terminology in Doric. So there'll be a wee bit of Doric coming in. And if you don't understand it, then we can explain it later. So what are the options for delivering competitive advantage? I would suggest that just complying with an external standard, whether it's 9001 or a sector-specific standard, isn't actually good enough, because I've come across lots of companies who have 9001, and to be honest, they're just nafa good. So it's almost the lowest common denominator. So complying with a standard is probably step 0.5 on the journey. Should you keep doing the same thing but do it better, or should you be doing different things in different ways? I think, if you like, the old style approach to quality was to keep trying to improve and sort of refine your processes, actually refine how you're doing things, leave processes out of this in the meantime. But nowadays, I think, coming back to the idea of innovation, I think innovation and doing different things in different ways is almost certainly how you will stand out. I don't know if anyone come across Seth Godin, Purple Cow. If you want to stand out from the crowd, so if you have a field full of beasts, and they're all, I don't know, Aberdeen Angus, they're all black, the way to get a cow to stand out is somehow to invent a purple cow, because a purple cow will stand out in the field. I think RG is probably going a bit far with purple bags. But the principle, you need to do something different. So essentially, it is critical to be critical. It's easier for me because I'm cynical and pedantic, but don't accept things. If it's in an ISO standard, it's not necessarily right, or that, that's the best way of doing it. I think it's fair to say that quality thinking has changed over the years. The predecessor to 9001, 5750, I think the origins of that were to control the production of munitions in the Second World War when things were blowing up. So the idea of inspecting things as they came off the production line came in. And I think it's fair to say that 9001 is very much sort of a manufacturing mindset, and people think of a production line with raw materials at one end and finished goods at the other. But it has changed. One, I think it is a problem that we get quite often, is that even if we suggest to somebody there's a better way of doing this, or have you thought about it this way, people's the reaction quite often is, yes, that looks quite sensible, but we're very busy just now, so come back and speak to us next year. So even though people are actually recognising, yes, we know we've got problems and there is probably a better way of doing it, people do actually have to put a bit of effort into making the change. So you need to go beyond just complying with a standard. So you need innovation and creativity. And essentially you need to be different, because if you're just the same as all the competition, and this probably applies at a personal level as well as an organisation, you need to be different to stand out, or different and better, obviously. 21st century thinking, I would say this anyway, but I think that, stop laughing Steve, to me everything is about process management. Everything you do, you're following a process. The standards, EFQM, the business excellence model, that's very much based around processes. 9001 allegedly introduced processes in the year 2000, but process management just isn't well understood. And my first piece of evidence, Your Honour, Quality World, which it still is the magazine for what was the IQA, the Institute of Quality Assurance, now CQI. They produced this in 1999, when the revision to 9001, the year 2000 revision, which allegedly suddenly discovered processes, and I don't know if you can read the heading, but procedures give way to a new, what is it? A new form, processes, as though processes didn't exist in the 20th century. Processes have always been there, just that folk can't actually see them, or don't think that way. Another problem I've got, and this is me being critical again, is an awful lot of the definitions and terminology doesn't help. How many of you are familiar with cow orking? Is anyone familiar with cow orking? No. It took me weeks and weeks to get to the bottom of this. I keep reading articles, or the terminology came up in articles. 9001 talks about internal and external customers, which Don also referred to. I get a bit confused, because the rest of the time when the standards are talking about customers, they actually mean the folk who are giving you money for whatever you deliver. So the articles kept talking about what I thought were co-workers, but actually they're co-workers. Maybe just putting a hyphen in would have worked. But I spent weeks thinking, what on earth are they talking about? And maybe I should just have asked somebody. Okay, maybe I'm stupid. So at the end of the day, in fact at the start of the day as well, language matters. It really makes a difference. In the northeast of Scotland, you'll probably find, but I don't know, well, Don's not from the northeast of Scotland originally, are you? No. The advantage that auditors in the northeast of Scotland have is that they can ask one question and they're actually wanting 3 answers. So, fit why did you de-at? Or if you know the person particularly well, it's fit why did you de-at men? The first question is, how did you do that? What method or what procedure did you follow to achieve that result? And that's one key thing. Were you following a standard process? Did you make it up as you went along? But it also can mean fit-wise why. Why did you do that, and what made you start? What triggered the sequence of events? So, was there a trigger event, and what made you actually decide to do something? And also, fit why did you do that can also mean what were you trying to achieve? Once you'd started, what was the objective you're trying to get at? So, in the question and answers at the end, bear in mind that if you ask me one question, I'll have at least 3 answers, all of which will be right. So, as I say, everything to my mind comes back to understanding things as processes. Whether it's a task or a process or an activity, and I'm not going to try to define which is which. What you need to understand and manage, and I think this is where people who understand processes can actually get a lot of advantage. Something has to kick the process off, and okay, if it's a production line, then you presumably put the switch on. But if you're in a service industry or an admin function, then you tend to be doing bits of things at different times. So something has to start the process. Once you've started, you're trying to achieve an objective or results. Along the way, you need resources, whether it's information or knowledge or people or physical equipment, to help you achieve the results. And certain things can influence how the process works. So it's almost certainly the company culture. It could be compliance with, or need to comply with a standard. Personal agendas come into it, which don't necessarily fit the overall objective. And as well as the specific output that you're wanting, there will be other outcomes that happen along the way. It could be damage to the environment, risk to health and safety, and so on. So all of these aspects you need to manage. And they apply whether you're making a phone call, whether you're following a recruitment process, whether you're managing an entire project, or whether you're managing the organisation for the next year. The principles still apply. Very quickly, examples: making sausages, making a phone call, designing a course, going to war. To my mind, all those elements apply at all the various levels. The idea of factors which can influence how a process works, if you look at an organisation, there are all sorts of things going on in the background, and this applies, as I say, at the organisational level, at the process level, and even at individual tasks. All of these various things need to be managed. Some of them are HR issues, some of them are physical issues. There's some of them standards compliance and so on. So all of these things you need to be aware of and to manage. Nipping on, you need a critical eye. What you're looking for is clarity in terms of what you're doing, why you're doing it. If you don't achieve if you don't find this critical eye, then you end up with things being just out of clarity, which means they're covered in mud and it's just a mess and a muddle. So it comes back to you need to be critical. As examples, our company has process mapping software. You can define processes in all sorts of formats, and from a distance they may look useful and convincing. That's our style of flowchart process map, which hopefully makes it clear not only what is done but also who does it. But you can do things, you can define processes in all sorts of different ways, and essentially some are better than others. So focus on objectives. One thing, and I think it was the Process Excellence Conference a couple of months ago, focus on what has most impact. So is it managing customer relationships? Is it how you do tenders? Spend the time, if that's critical to your business, then spend the time improving that. Also, Colin Coulson Thomas of Canfield, was he? I can't remember. He said 80% of people who do things do them run-of-the-mill, okay, not too bad. 10% of folk are rubbish, and the other 10% are the ones who really do it very well. What you should concentrate on is how do they do it. So rather than training people to do the same as the 80%, look at what the really good people are doing. Maybe that's a lesson for business school. I think we do it already. What resources do you need, and what factors can influence how things turn out? I'll just stick this up very quickly. I always thought there were two types of process: the sort of continuous production line, and then the sort of business admin type process. I think that now there are at least 5 different types of process where you're at the one extreme you're trying to reduce variation, and at the other extreme you're trying almost to encourage variation and responsiveness, and okay, what are the conditions in this particular case that we need to respond to. As I said, managing the process to me is the process of managing, and that's the end, basically. I look forward to questions, I think.